I think let's get started. It's already 2 minutes beyond time. So thank you so much for joining the session. And I hope some of you at least could join the inaugural session that just concluded and got an idea of how the universities are thinking about building skills and looking at the industry collaboration as well. And this breakout session, we'll discuss amongst ourselves how do we look at the skilling part and why it is important for the academia as well as for the industries to collaborate with each other. And while the others would join in, what I would also request, as I said earlier, it'll be great for you to switch on the videos because it'll be more of an interactive session where we'd love to get some thoughts from you as well on some of the things that we'll discuss today. But before we start the session, just wanted to have a quick round of introduction on our side. So my name is Eklavya Bhave and I'm the Regional Director for Coursera. And I look after our partnerships and the work that we do with the industry and the universities across the Asia Pacific region. I also have my colleague Tarun, who some of you would have met. Tarun also manages the relationship and works very, very closely with the universities in the Asia region. So it's a small group, right? So it'll be good to get your introductions as well because it's just 10 of us. So may I request, and I can see on my screen, Dr. Imran Ho, may I request you to quickly share a little bit about you, and then we can go around the room and get our introductions and know each other.
Hi,
and mind you, we'll be together for next 60 minutes. So it'll be good to know each other and interact with each other. Sorry, Doctor.
Okay, I'll begin. I'm Imran Ho. I'm from the University Kebangsaan Malaysia, the Deputy Vice Chancellor, responsible for industry, alumni, and also community partnership. So looking forward to this session. Thank you.
Thank you. Please feel free to introduce yourself as we go around the room. Sorry, you have to be a little louder, please. Hardly able to hear you.
Okay, so good afternoon. I am Brunetta Brenica. I am from the University of San Carlos in Cebu, Philippines. I actually represent the Office of the Department Chair of the Department of Political Science, at the same time, the Office of External Relations and Internationalization. Thank you.
Thank you. Brian, Dr. Zita, may I request any one of you to introduce yourself, please?
Hi, I'm Zita Mamafami. I work with the Quest International University in Perak. And hi, Imran. Hi, Mr. Tarun. I know we met the other day.
Hi, Prof. Zita. Nice to see you in this room.
And it's been a long time, Imran. We catch up with each other. I'm glad to be here. I'm glad to join and getting the invitation to join. So I'm looking forward to the exchange of ideas because these are some of these things are happening around us. I think for some universities we are groping to see how we could actually manage this because it is important for the students.
Great, thanks for joining in, Dr. Zita.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Brian from Swinburne. So my role is a discipline leader for the Bachelor of ICT, Information Communication Technology. And I'm hoping that we can learn something more today about how our students can interact with the industry. Thank you.
Thank you for joining in. And as I said earlier, we'll be sharing our perspectives, but we are also keen to learn from you and all of you on what we are seeing in your university as well as in your country. So it'll be more of a learning session for all of us. Thanks for joining in. Professor Then, may I request you to introduce yourself, please?
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Patrick Then, Head of School for School of ICT and also Director for Center for Digital Futures in Swinburne University of Technology Sarawak campus. Yep, we are always putting a lot of emphasis in industry engagement to learn more from all my other peers and colleagues around the world. Thank you.
Thank you. Professor Chan and Professor Lim. I can also see in the meanwhile, Dr. Ong joining in. Thanks for joining in, Dr. Ong. We were just introducing ourselves, so it'll be great for the other participants to know a little bit about you as well.
Hey, nice to meet you, everyone. Greetings from Mahidol University, Thailand. I am Ong Winton. I am the Deputy Dean for International Affairs at the Faculty of Graduate Study. Nice to meet you all. Thank you. Yeah.
Thanks for joining in. May I request Professor Lim and Professor Roland Chan to introduce themselves as well?
Hi, I'm Roland Chan from UCSI University, Malaysia. I'm at the Global Engagement Office, mainly looking into all the internationalizations aspect, institutional collaborations. Thank you. Nice to meet you, everyone.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Crystal Lim, and I'm a Deputy Dean and Associate Professor at the Faculty of Applied Sciences, UCSI University. So Roland is my close colleague. Yeah.
All right. And great to see that there are participants from the same country, university, and the other objective is for you to network and meet each other, because obviously the physical meetings are not happening anymore. And before we get into the formal session where we interact and exchange ideas, I was just thinking that, and this idea came from one of our internal meetings where it was asked that what superpower that you would love to have, if you had one power that you could have, what would that be? And it'll be good to get some ideas from you as well. If you had just one superpower, what power that you would like to have? And maybe I can just start off by sharing one of the things that I thought of. Actually, I thought of two things. One is if I could teleport myself, right? I haven't traveled for 1.5 years now. I haven't met my parents. I haven't seen a new place. So if I could just teleport myself in a snap, if I could be at my parents' house, I could be in Hawaii, I could be in New Zealand, I would love to do that. So that's the superpower I would love to have. It'll be great to get some ideas from others as well. And while you think, maybe I'll give another 10 seconds for you to think which is the other superpower that you'll like to have. The other superpower I thought it'll be great to have is if I could read the minds. If I could read what Professor Chan is thinking right now, if I could read what Dr. Ong is thinking right now, but that can be a little tricky as well, right? So not always you'll get to hear something which is good about you. So maybe I'll park that superpower for now. But since I don't have that superpower, since I can't read your mind, it'll be great to hear from you. And not only just on this question of superpower, but also on some of the things that we'll be discussing in next 50 minutes or so. So maybe if somebody can just share what superpower you would like to have, and that'll be a great warm up for us to start and get going with the session.
That's not fair, Kulaya. You have two superpowers.
You can take one of them. I don't have one, right? I don't have the power of reading people's mind, and that's why I request you to speak out. But yeah, Dr. Hope, feel free to take one of those powers.
One superpower, be gone, virus.
Oh, I think that's something that each one of us will cheer for, and I hope you get that superpower. Anybody else would like to share? And then we get into our session. All right. So while you think for it, let's get started with the session. And if you attended the main session, there were a few things that we discussed in the main session. And one of the things that we discussed was the industry and the academia collaboration. And that's what today, right now, for next 50 minutes or so, we'll be discussing together. Why is it important for the universities to collaborate with the employers? And why is it important for the students as well? And this, in the next 50 minutes or so, what we are going to do is I'm going to share what we are learning from the other universities, what we are seeing as Coursera going to academia as well as industries together. and also some of the global perspectives. And then would love to get your feedback and ideas on some of these points. And we thought of dividing this section into three parts. First is we look at what are the jobs and the skills which are relevant for students today, because we heard in the main session that this is one of the important things for the universities today. The second is why is it important for you to teach digital skills, as well as what are some of the challenges that the universities are facing while teaching digital skills to its students. And the most important piece is what kind of industry partnerships are you looking at, and how do you leverage the collaboration between the industry and the academia. And we will try to balance it out, giving equal time to all the three questions that we have. And the way I was thinking is I'll share some of the perspectives of Coursera and would love to get your thoughts on each of them. So let's get started, and I'll request Tarun to help me keeping a check on the time so that we spend equal amount of time on all these questions. So, I mean, just as a context, this is a report that came out in Wall Street Journal in October of 2020, when we were just about 5-6 months into COVID. And it said that because of COVID, there'll be a big divide between haves and have not. And this divide is not just the divide of the resources, of the things that people have, the internet people have, the money that people have, but I think it talks of a more and a deeper sense of divide that will come out due to COVID. And this was already starting to happen before COVID, because if you were to look at the impact of digitization and automation on the jobs, there was already a lot that was happening before COVID in the background. And this was a report again that came out in Bloomberg in 2017, much before we were hit by COVID. And it plotted the low skilled jobs and the jobs which were going to get impacted on automation. So if you look at this graph, it says, and it shows which are the jobs that might be impacted the most when it came to automation. And if you were to plot this graph and see the jobs which will be impacted most by the automation, if you see on the bottom right corner are the list of jobs which will be most impacted by automation. And on the left side of the graph, what you see are the jobs which will be not only least impacted by automation, but also will be the jobs which will be high paying jobs. And if you look at the legend, and if you keep a close eye on the bubbles that are there on the graph, you would see the jobs which are least impacted, and the jobs which are more high paying jobs are the jobs with degrees, which means that the jobs where you need more knowledge, where the jobs where you need more skill are the jobs which will be least impacted by the automation. And that's something which we all are experiencing today, because I don't remember going to a bank branch or talking to a cashier in many months. We already do the internet banking, we go to the ATMs if we need the cash. Similarly, the customer service reps, right? 5 years ago, 7 years ago, you pick up the phone, you talk to a telecom company or a bank, you spend 5-7 minutes talking to a customer service representative. Now everything is either interactive voice response or the chat bot that gives answers to you. And that's why the automation had this impact on the jobs. And if you see here, it is not just the college degrees, but it is also important to note that these jobs are also impacted by digital things that are happening across our world, because these jobs have gone a lot of change in last few years, and all of these jobs also require digital skills. And the third important piece is the credentials. And we heard Dr. Pachari in the main session that when the students of Maidol University show that they have acquired the skills, the industries ask for those certificates and credentials, because it's important to see the students have already acquired those skills. And this was purely on automation. But if you look at the impact of COVID, this becomes even more scarier, because again, the jobs which are low skilled jobs are impacted the most, because obviously in the last 1.5 years, the malls are closed, the retail stores are closed, the restaurants are closed. So obviously these are the jobs which are getting impacted more and more. And if you were to look at what the companies are doing is during this phase of COVID, the companies also accelerated the digitization because it was natural for the companies to stay in business. They had to look at some of the newer ways of servicing their clients, talking to their partners, customers, and employees. And more than 84% of the companies have started to look at digitizing the workplace. And that obviously is accelerating the importance of skilling in the job world. And that's why it'll be good for us to hear from you what you're seeing in terms of the requirement of skilling in your areas, and more importantly, how you're tracking which are the skills which are important, which are the jobs which are important, and to acquire those jobs, what skills are needed. And second part is, once you know that, what are the kind of skills you're looking at building in your students? So two questions. How do you get those insights? And second, what are the kind of skills that you're looking at building in your students today? I'll pause my screen here and would love to get thoughts. It's a small group that we have. It'll be great to get some thoughts. Dr. Ho, may I request you to start and help us get some answers? So two things that we would love to know from you is, one, how do you get those insights, some of the insights that I shared on a regular basis? And then second, what kind of skills are you looking to build in your students?
Thanks, Aklavia, for the information that you have presented. You're right. A lot of the the skills and those jobs that will be no longer there will definitely be one of the major challenge for all universities. It's very interesting in the opening session this morning, where we had Raja Singham and our friend from the university in India. They have actually identified, in the growing area of universities where we need really to have some sort of flexibility, a lot of flexibility in the curriculum and the way things, the academia deals with things, including, of course, praxis, and also making sure that from the very start, the industry are part and parcel of the curriculum, so that we are very agile to all the changes that we need to make. And of course, very important also,
I think we lost Dr. Ho, and he made an important point on the changing skills and ever-changing skills which are needed, and then how do you prepare the students? So, and that's get back to me the question that I posed, and would love to get your thoughts on. How do you keep a track of what are the skills needed for different roles? And then second is, when you look at that data, what are the kind of skills that you're looking to build in your students this year, next year? Would love to get your thoughts. Otherwise, I'll have to kind of request each one of you to share your thoughts one by one. Dr. Abrinica, may I request you to share your thoughts on how do you look at what are the skills which are relevant? How do you keep a track of it? And then what are the kind of skills that you're looking to build in your students?
All right. Thank you very much, Eclavia, for this opportunity. For the University of San Carlos, we are sitting as a member of the Academe Industry Linkage Unit of the Cebu Chamber of Commerce and Industry. And this gives us an opportunity to learn from the business people themselves, those leading the industry, about what are the new skills that they would like to expect from the incoming workers. And it is in such a manner that we are able to appraise the kind of skill sets that we would like our students to actually develop. And this has hastened a little bit because of the pandemic. So aside from the Cebu Chamber of Commerce and Industry, constant collaboration and partnership with international organizations, exposure to international fora had also given us an idea about the different 21st century skills that our students need to have. In fact, since last year when the pandemic ensued, and even this year for our summer term, our faculty members needed to do our own training so that we can keep pace with the demands of keeping our students on track as far as the kind of abilities and skills they need. So there are a lot of sources, especially for the Philippines being a third world country. We get to, get some sources from various uh, portals or organizations and the like. In the first session, I was actually struck by internship being done with various non-government organizations in order to build values and virtues, which for us is also very necessary. For me, it was a very insightful sharing because our students always look at what's best for them in the future. Looking at the graph earlier, I found accountants already a very vulnerable group, and for our university, accountancy has a global curriculum. So this brings me to thinking that even with having a global curriculum, it's no assurance that our accountants in the future will be less vulnerable. However, putting into and ensuring that soft skills, aside from the hard technical skills that students actually learn from the discipline, but the soft skills, their ability to bounce back, their resilience in different situations and circumstances will also be very important. What we did observe over the last few months is that a number of our students have actually exhibited mental health issues. They've expressed that uh, uh, vocally, and we find that aside from the academic inputs, the soft skill support and the mental health support are very much important for our students. So that's all from the University of San Carlos. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing your insights. And I have three takeaways on what you shared. One is obviously the importance of industry collaboration, and that's where you get some of those insights. The second part is making sure that the students continuously have the ability, even if it's like an accounting program, right? You may assume that it's the safe and nothing will change. And maybe I'll share something on that lines as well. And third is the human skills. And just as a point, we looked at last 1 year of the number of course enrollments that we had on our platforms. Obviously, the hard skills, data science and AI had high number of enrollments, but we saw a massive change in the soft skills as well. In 2020, a lot many students as well as working professionals did enrollments to build those human skills. And just for example, there's a very famous and nice course on Coursera, the Science of Well-being. It itself saw more than 3 million registrations in the last 1 year. So that clearly speaks on what are some of the things that not only the students in Philippines, but across the world are going. I just don't agree with one point that you made, is that you said Philippines is a third world country. I would say it's a developing economy and a vibrant economy. So that's one thing. Would love to go around the room, but maybe just pause here because there are other things that we'll also discuss in the meanwhile as a group. And maybe I'll share some more insights and then would invite the comments and feedback from the other guests. So we discussed on what are some of the areas and sources from where you can get these jobs and the skills that are needed for those jobs and ever-changing requirement of the skills. And the second question, which which we wanted to hear from your thoughts on, what are the skills that you are looking to build? So one is obviously the human skills. The other thing that we are hearing more and more universities across the world are developing is digital skills. And again, what Dr. Nika said is even a program like accounting, there also you need digital skills. And that becomes very clear if we look at some of these external data points. So we looked at two external sources for some of those data points. One is a report from World Economic Forum, which talks about which are the top 5 jobs with increase in demand. And if you look at these 5 jobs, the top 2 didn't even exist 4-5 years ago, right? And if I was a student of engineering and getting the admission in 2016, 17, and if I pass out now, the data science, AI, ML was not even there. But now when I'm entering the job world, this is the top most job. So how do I keep myself prepared for something which is ever changing as that? And if you look at even jobs which are 4 and 5, traditionally they are not digital jobs. So it's a marketing and strategy role. And the fifth, the last one is the process specialist. But if you look at how these jobs have also gone change, is that the marketing role has become digital marketing, and the process specialist has become the process automation specialist. And that clearly shows the impact of digital and the AI, which brings in to all the roles that we know across us. And other thing which Jeff also spoke about in the opening session is the addition of digital jobs in next 5 years. In next 5 years itself, there'll be 149 million jobs which will be added into the software world and the digital jobs. And this is not limited to pure software world, but across all the domains. And just to verify that, what we also did was to look at the skills that are needed by the industry right now, right? And if you look at the skills that are needed by the employers right now is, I mean, this is not a comprehensive list, but if you look at the top 5, 6 skills that are needed are likes of blockchain, IoT, cybersecurity, etc. And again, this is similar to what we have seen in the earlier slide, that these are one, new, second, they are ever changing. In 2025, 2030, we might be talking about some other skills. So it's important that we continue to teach our students some of those digital skills because they are ever changing. And that thought that we need to continuously teach digital skills is itself a challenge when we talk to many universities. When we speak to universities, not only in Asia, but globally, we get to hear from the universities that obviously there are multiple challenges in teaching digital skills to the students, but the top two are lack of good instructors. And that's very natural to happen, because if these skills are around for only 4 or 5 years, how do you find the instructors within your location, within your country, who are available to teach to your students, because the pool itself is small and their availability to teach your students will also be limited. And then the other point, which we all know, is the lack of flexibility in the curriculum, right? Changes in the curriculum take ages, but how do you make sure that the students have the ability to learn what they need to learn even while they are following the curriculum? And that's why it's important for us to hear from you is what are some of the ways that you are building those skills. But before I do that, I just wanted to show 2 more data points to you. As I was discussing earlier, we were looking at some more data points internally, and it's a little complex chart, but I just want to make it simple for you. What we did was to look at the skills that the engineering students who started to learn on Coursera, what skills do they have? And the dark blue bar shows the skills that the engineering student had. And what you see on the right side is the kind of career paths that they wanted to be in. So electrical engineer, mechanical engineer, even within those streams, how many of them wanted to become automation engineer, how many of them wanted to become mechatronics engineer. And what we did is to look at the skills of the professionals who already are learning on Coursera. So for example, I am an electrical engineer student, and what we did is also mapped to the skills of an actual electrical engineer working professional who's learning on Coursera. And we figured out that there was a huge gap in the skills that the student had and what the skills are required to perform that role. And out of all the skills, if you look at the ones which are mentioned here, which is data management, software engineering, and statistical programming, stood out the most. Because in a normal engineering role, if I'm not a computer science engineer, if I'm a mechanical engineer, if I am a chemical engineer, software engineering or data management is not something which will be taught as part of the curriculum. Statistics will be not taught as part of curriculum. But in a working world, these are the skills which are required. We again looked at outside engineering into main business programs. And again, this comes back to one of the points that we made is a role of an accountant, right? So there were many students who started learning on Coursera, but what it came out very clearly is the career paths that these students wanted to pursue. The skills which were needed to perform those roles, there was massive gap again in the digital skills, which is computer programming and statistical programming. 5 years ago, you would have asked, why would a marketer need a statistical programming capability? Why would an accountant need a programming capability? But nowadays, it has become a reality because data, digital skills, machine learning skills have become pervasive, and it has become very, very important for each of those roles to have these skills to perform their roles better. And that's why, again, want to come back to you and ask you, what are some of the challenges that you face when you think of teaching digital skills to your students? So while I know that all of you would have heard, seen from your industry collaborators as well as from your students that digital skills are important, but if you were to think and start building digital skills in your student base, what are some of the challenges that you encounter?
Well, can I share our experience? Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you so much, Claria. And your question is interesting. That like, what are the skills? What are the challenges that we face with the digital skills? But here, I would like to point out some experience that we are facing. Because I'm not a teacher in the digital education, and but one point is that when we think of the digital education, it is part of the broader spectrum under the future skills, right? We could say, in fact, it is not the future. It is already now. Already that is the job is currently demanding. But in our university, we treated this one as a future skill, because we can forget about like a Master of Science in the computer engineering or something. It is not, but I mean the digital skill or digital education for every student, not only the engineering, not only the ICT student, but the skills required from the sector of like social science, humanities, and from the medical students and so on. So because in Mahidol we have like broad several disciplines, so we have to consider for all, right? So what we do is that what we notice is that sometimes that students doesn't know that these skills are important. That is because this is like I'm not sure this is because of that we are in the third world country that one Brenica pointed out, right? So because maybe because of the nature of the students, I'm not sure, because we are not sure that the students really appreciate that or not, right? So what we were planning, what we are doing is that number one is that we need to educate students. I mean, in the sense that they should know that these skills are important. So right now we introduce like the terms like a future ready skills. Before that, we have like a soft skill. We talk a lot about the soft skill. In the 2016, we started there like a soft skill to the students. We make compulsory for all the students. But at the time, we just say like, okay, you should join. You are invited to join. But after 2 years, we make them, okay, if you want to graduate from us, you have to complete that soft skills training, something like that, because we know that it's important, right? But now, like, skills are more and more, and like, especially like digital skills. Like those students from the human rights, they don't want digital, and those students from the the social or music, social science, they don't want like programming. But what we are thinking is that okay, we make them like a compulsory, not only compulsory. We cannot do everything like compulsory because they are other hard skill to learn as well. So we make like advertisement. And another way around is that okay, during the admission section, that we let them know that instead of selecting the program, how if we tell them that what skill do you want to learn from us? Like we try to change the perspective the student see us. Like, okay, when do they come to the university? Okay, they join the university for example, health science. Okay, but okay, you are joining for health science, but what do you expect from us? Okay, you can get the skills. These are the future skills. And from there, you have to select like that. So this is, like we are trying to implement it in our university.
Yeah, very, very interesting thoughts, Dr. Ong. And I agree with you, because I also remember when we started our partnership with MyDole, my thinking was that the first skills and the first courses that the MyDole University students would go for would be health sciences and medical related courses. But it was good to see that many, many students opted for digital skills as well as human skills. So even if I want to become a medical practitioner, it is very, very heartening to see that the students know that even the human skills and digital skills are very, very relevant for them. I can also see Dr. Edenwon joining. We haven't heard thoughts from you, but it'll be great to hear some thoughts from you in terms of how you're tracking what skills are relevant, and when you look around you that digital skills are important, what are some of the challenges that you're currently facing in building those digital skills?
Hi, I'm sorry I got on a little bit late, but I heard part of the first part of your discussion, and also, of course, this part. Let me just make some general comments here. First of all, I'm at the Asian Institute of Technology, which is outside Bangkok, but we're a graduate institution. So the graduate institution, how it addresses some of these questions is a little bit different than what a undergraduate or a comprehensive university would do. But I personally have, in my career, I have been in an undergraduate only institution before, and I also have been in a comprehensive university before. So now I'm in a graduate institution. So let me, first of all, I think that first point I would like to make is that I rather use the word digital literacy rather than digital skills, because I think digital literacy should be part of the core requirements for any institution, and especially the undergraduate institution. In the past, when I went to college, which was decades ago, you had a language core requirement, you had a humanities core requirement, and then you had some other core requirement. And then, of course, you get to select other electives of your interest and a major, okay? So I'm just saying that digital field and some of the areas that you listed in the previous slide, should be part of the digital literacy core requirement. I don't care whether you're a art major or drama major or accounting major or engineer. You should be doing that. You'd be surprised what jobs you have in the future that requires something like that. You really must have this kind of literacy. It is no longer true that you can go in the field and hide and not be worrying about digital or anything having to do with virtual, et cetera. And I think that if there's one good thing coming out of COVID, not many, but one of the good things is the fact that everybody knows how important virtual is and how important the internet is and how important the whole non-physical world is. So that's my first point. My second point is that let's be careful not to push some of the things that I would call are subjects of continuing education into the undergraduate curriculum, okay? I still think that a university is not a training school. A university is a university to stimulate the mind. And to try to only looking at it to provide job preparation, I think for a graduate school, you may need to do that. You may need to do more of that. Because you have people who are going to go on and become faculty in a certain field. So they certainly need a lot of specialization, or people who want to go in industry at a certain level, higher level, and they have to be knowledgeable. So you definitely need a speciality. I'm not saying that you should not have a major, but I'm saying that you got to be careful into making it like a training institute for some job placement. Because as you had just said, even if you do that, things will be different by the time you graduate. And they'll be totally different 3 years after you graduate. So what a waste of time to be spending all that time in undergraduate learning something that's obsolete in 3 to 5 years. These things should be upgraded, through Coursera, through continuing education arms of many universities, like we have a big continuing education arm to bring in people who have already been working 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, and upgrade them because things are changing so fast. So I really say, yes, we need specialization. We can't have a bunch of generalists that graduate, and especially true, of course, with graduate school, but even true also for undergraduates. But any other additional skills, okay, they need to continually pick up. If they don't continually pick up and lifelong learning, then that graduate is not going to be useful to whatever world, business world or academic world that they're entering into. So those are just the 2 points I make about one is digital literacy should be required for everyone, and second is that let's be very careful about pushing too many things who are ideally in the continuing education world into especially in undergraduate education.
Great. Thank you so much, Dr. Edenwoon. Very, very articulate and very crisp and concise thoughts. And two things I take away from what you said is one, before we even look at skilling, the hard skills part and making sure that the students acquire those skills, the digital literacy part. And you would be surprised that while we work with universities, on the other side, we also work with the enterprises and companies. And one of the main programs those companies look at when collaborating with Coursera is digital skills, because they are hiring a lot of students from the campuses. And also there are tenured employees in the companies who need to acquire the basics of digital skills first. And that's why across the companies, we run large programs of digital literacy first, and then helping the employees to upskill and reskill so that they can perform their current role much better. So that's one which I completely agree with you. And you stole my words, which I had thought of sharing later. And the other thing was is being continuously able to upgrade yourself, right? That talks about having a agile mindset, because we have seen that average age of a technical skills or a hard skill right now is 2.5 years. And that's why it's important that you keep learning something which is ever changing. The other thing that we just wanted to quickly share with you and get your perspective on was, initially we talked about how do you keep a track of the skills which are needed. Second, then why is it important for the students to acquire digital skills? And then what are some of the challenges that you're currently facing in building those digital skills? But the other thing, and maybe the last portion of our discussion today, is going back to the topic that we started with, is the industry collaboration. And again, I wanted to give you some insights and then get your feedback on that. Is when we talk to the universities, and as we are listening to some of the panelists say here today, is that since the skills are ever changing, how do you get a real-time view of what those skills are? Because then only you will be able to share with your students so that they are able to build those skills. Second, once you know what skills are relevant, then how do you offer the broad range of elective courses for the students to develop those skills, and also connect the faculty members and students to those broader programs? Because you may start with digital literacy program, but then also help both. And very important here to keep in mind is that in addition to the students, it's important also for the faculty members to keep pace with what's happening around the world. And then obviously we are moving more towards the digital age. So keeping the same physical infrastructure, how do you make sure that you're able to provide these kind of skilling opportunities to students and faculty members in a very, very cost effective way? And these are some of the real-time partnerships that we are talking about. And that's how we work with universities in order to share some of those insights and help the faculty members and students to build those skills. And because of the two things that we are able to do. One is on the partnership side. If you look at our Coursera partners, in addition to the top universities, we also have partnerships with these and many more industry partners. And these are the companies such as Google, IBM, AWS, etc., that are the leaders in their own domain, and especially in the digital area. So if these are the companies which are creating more jobs, these are the companies which are coming up with the latest technology, it's important that we are able to learn from them, because that's more of a strong indicator of where the working world is moving. The other piece is we also work, as I said earlier, also work with the companies. So not only on the partnership side, but we work with companies helping them upgrade the skills of their full-time employees. So if somebody wants to be in a bank, somebody wants to be in telecom company, we are able to share those insights because we work with those companies on the other hand as well. And that's where, if you see here, we are able to create a bridge between what the academic world aspires to and what the working world or the employers need today. Obviously, since we are talking about the industry collaboration, what we hear from the employers, because we work very, very closely with 3,000 plus global companies across the world, is that when they hire candidates, when they hire the students from the campus, they want them to be really productive soon. And as I said earlier, one of the first programs that they start is digital literacy program, because that's where they feel the biggest gap in the skills is. And then helping them to get the practical exposure and then validated skills. So it is not just degrees. Many companies have gone ahead and not looked at just degrees, but also some of the verifiable credentials that the students can show. And on the academic side, as we speak with academic leaders like all of you, it's the same signals that we are getting across different countries, is that industry relevant content, enhanced placement, stronger industry partnerships. And the other piece that we talked about earlier is helping the faculty members to upskill, because these are some of the elements that are very, very important for a university. And Coursera is able to bridge that gap by bringing those elements which are relevant for the industry as well as the elements which are important for the academic world. And that brings me to the last question, is what kind of existing partnerships that do you have with the industries today, and what kind of long-term partnerships would you like to have? So because the second question is on purpose, because we know that the skills that are needed change every 2 to 3 years. So it's not just one-time partnership that you would look at, but what is the sustainable partnership that you are looking at from the industry? And we'd just like to get some thoughts on these two questions, on what kind of industry partnerships do you have currently and what kind of long-term partnerships are you thinking of? And I would invite somebody who's not had the opportunity to speak till now. So maybe may I request Dr. Zita or Crystal to share your thoughts on this?
Hi, let me just say a few things.
Sure.
It's been a very interesting discussion. I know we had a prior discussion with Tarun earlier, and I think if I speak on behalf of the university, it's a small university up way north of Kuala Lumpur. And I think one of the things the university is very conscious of the fact that the skills components are changing very fast. So as a policy of the university, I think the goal is one of the requirements that all students have to take compulsory one subject in the digital technology. Yeah, it's a compulsory subject for a start. It doesn't matter which program you are in, and on top of that, I think the one of the things, the discussion I had with the faculties was whenever we look at programs and so on, I always ask them, I said, how much are you now bringing technology into your curriculum? Because different discipline requires different access to technology. I'm just not talking about engineering or the real technology side, but even if it's a culinary arts program, and I said to them how because all students must know everything. I mean, all systems, and I think businesses are going to be so dependent on technology, so you can't avoid not looking into your program to see, okay, which are the component that has a relevant technology application that you can use. This is an ongoing thing that we are looking at, yeah, in terms of reviewing the curriculum. And I know, I mean, for some universities, the mechanism for changes in curriculum takes time. Yeah, I think you need to be a bit more agile, not a bit, a lot agile, to be able to deal with these changes fast. So curriculum cannot be so rigid in the sense that that it takes months to change. But I think those of you who knows me and in Malaysia, you know how long it takes you when you do a curriculum change. You have to go to the authorities and you have to come back, and by the time you get your document back, your approval back, things would, some changes would have taken place. So we have to deal with the authorities as well. But I think internally with the university, they can do a lot more. So if they look at the system that are using, where the students are concerned, those components are already coming in. But definitely, we need a lot more up-to-date instructors. Yeah, people who are on top of what's changing outside there in terms of technology to be able to use it, even to introduce to digitalize our system. Not just a curriculum. It's a long process because I think it's happening, but it will take time. I do agree. That the industry partnership is very important. Again, I would think for my minimal short experience there where I am, I think they are industry that's coming in, wanting to work with the university into bringing in digital technology into the program. Specifically more of the computer science program, not engineering or that. And I find that exposure, if the collaboration is actually good, because you will not only learn bringing in really real-time curriculum changes, but also being able to work in the industry, in selected industry. I think it's a real benefit to the student. But as usual, I think for many would be how to process this kind of relationship. So there's a need to want to work more with industry, but as a university, your system need to understand that you need to make those changes. I think that's the way to go, because I think the more you work with these companies or these solution providers and embed it in your system, but it has to be a win-win situation. And the university administration must understand. Of course, it's going to cost us money. I think that's another consideration that we need to figure out. But as a whole, I think the university should be very clear in their policy about bringing in digital. As I like the word digital literacy, because it's a lot wider than digital skills. By regulation, by law, and so on, all programs will need to embed digital skills component in the program, regardless. And that's a policy that we have. Not just in Quest, but all the universities in Malaysia. So I think the basically I think the university needs to be, needs to move fast, needs to be more agile, and realize that you need to equip the students, but not at the. Of course, you need to balance between humanizing the curriculum, and besides bringing a lot of technology, the soft skills become very important, because my personal view is I think we need to drive the students to look at the changes that are happening, equip them with the right skills to be able to, to accelerate, to manage themselves with the skills given at the university, so that when system change, solution change, there are new skills coming in, they are able to actually use it and work on it and work fast. That's my take for this.
No, thank you so much. And this is very, very relevant, because you talk about the innovation and also not in terms of how we teach, but also what we teach is also part of that. And I also see Dr. Peter Laurel join us. May I request Dr. Laurel to talk a little bit about that, because I know that the next session in the panel, you are one of the guests and you're talking about the innovation, but in the smaller group, we'd love to get some thoughts on that. And also one of the points that Dr. Zita made is how do you overcome the challenges of changing the curriculum, because that takes a while.
Hello, everyone. Hi. Thank you. My little take on that, in learning from all the discussions, is it's really about collaboration, isn't it? I mean, it's not a new word. We've been doing it, but now it seems we really have to collaborate in a greater extent. And so I think for many of us in the schools, it's really the industry driven really would be a high priority. But exactly how to do that is really what we're all trying to figure out. But I think the pivot has started. We have some ways to go, but I think that's the only way to move forward. And all of those micro-badging, micro-credentialing, all of these industry-driven, flexible learning outcomes. And they now adding the whole-based human education so it doesn't get too techy, but it's more balanced. These are the things that we're really trying to do. And so I think the next few weeks, months, is to deepen those ties that we probably already have in our schools, but to really deepen it to a bigger extent. We can have less industry partners, but deeper relationships. So the training does not really go too far, too long, and we're able to be relevant. So I think it's a relevance issue for university, and and the way is to collaborate heavily with industry and a few partners.
Thank you, Dr. Laurel. And we would love to hear a lot from you in the next session as well. So we'll definitely join that session and request all of you to join the next session as well, because Dr. Peter Laurel is one of the guest speakers for the next session. Last 2 minutes, I also just want to bring in Professor Abdul Razak. We haven't heard from you. So any of these topics that we discussed in last one or so, would love to get your perspective on them as well. I'm not sure if he's able to speak, but in the meanwhile, Dr. Ho, we lost you while you were speaking, so I would love to hear your thoughts as well.
Thank you very much. I think definitely we have had very interesting sessions with regards to collaboration with the industry. I think your angle has always been teaching how Coursera is bridging the skills needed, and you also have the industry behind you. I think that's very interesting.
All right, some last thoughts before we close in. Anybody who's not able to share your views, I was requesting Professor Abdul Razak to share your views as well, because we've not been able to come to you for your thoughts, if you're still around. All right, so what we did while we all were sharing our views was also to get your perspectives on some of these thoughts. And what we have done is taken some key takeaways from all the points that you have shared. And in the interest of time, I'll not go through all of them, but just wanted to make sure that we've captured some of the ideas that you've shared across all the 3 points that we discussed. And some of the things that clearly come out are obviously the industry collaboration is needed, and not just one time or a short term industry collaboration, but a longer industry collaboration on a continuous basis. Second is the importance of human skills. And as I shared earlier, we were looking at the data between 2019 and 2020. The number of enrollments on the human skills have gone up significantly. Then Dr. Edenwoon also talked about digital literacy, which is very, very important, because even before we go to the skilling part, it's important that we make students aware of what digital skills that they need and start at the basic level. And then obviously the last part is being agile and flexible, not in terms of just the curriculum, because that's very limited power that you have in changing the curriculum, but making sure that you give continuous learning opportunities to students so that they are able to learn what are some of the relevant skills for them, but also stay relevant in the current working environment. Just right on time. So I wanted to thank all of you for being with us here for this breakout session. Some very, very interesting points shared with you. It was a mutual learning for us, because we had some point of view, but obviously, as we shared in the last slide, we had a lot of takeaways from all of you. And when I started the session, I said, if I had the one superpower of hearing what you're thinking or being able to capture what you're thinking, I don't have that superpower, but it was good to get your feedback directly from you, and I didn't have to read your mind. So thank you for joining for this session, and we want to make it as a regular interaction. So we'll find ways to interact with you very, very regularly. Thanks once again for joining this session. And I would just want to remind you that there's the last session starting in next 13 minutes. Please do join that session. And we'll also have Dr. Peter Laurel, who's part of this group right now, sharing his thoughts as well. So thank you once again, and we'll stay in touch. Thank you for joining today, and have a rest of a good day.